Okay, everyone, we are just waiting for everyone to get in the room. Okay, Jess, go ahead and kick us off.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Democratic Forum. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Jessica Gardner, and I am the former Miss Wiltshire, Pennsylvania 2021. And now I'll hand it over to Josie.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Welcome, everyone. It is so great to be here with all of you tonight. We are really excited for tonight's event. And so, first off, I want to share with you a little bit about who we are and what brought us all here together. So my name is Josie, as I mentioned, and I am president of J Badger Consulting, but I have the privilege of being the director of Trail, which is a project of the Women and Girls Foundation supported by Family Values at Work. Trail is a statewide disability advocacy and lobbying training program. The forums are a partnership between Trail, Disability Options Network, Anthracite Regional Center for Independent Living, and the Lehigh Valley Center for Independent Living. Tonight, we will be hearing from General Josh Shapiro, the Democratic candidate for the Pennsylvania governor's race. People with disabilities make up the largest minority group in the world and state, and thus could have a major impact on the outcomes of any election. But also, obviously, those who have disabilities are directly impacted by legislation and policy from the state, and thus it's really important for all of us to hear what is going on and develop relationships with our leaders. Tonight, we will hear questions that were directly developed by Trail members and the disability community. They will also be asked by Trail members. So we are excited to hear from the general. I'm going to slowly turn it over to Everett to share a little bit more about Trail and tonight's program.
Sure, and thank you, Josie, for doing that. And just to give everyone a little bit of an idea of and Josie, this was your baby when Trail was underway. But one of the things that we really thought was important was that we wanted to create a program where advocates could learn the basics of telling their story to people to have a positive impact with change makers in their communities. And so we spent a lot of time with the Trail members that are all here tonight. Most of them are here talking about that and discussing that in a major way. And so I'm really excited to have General Shapiro here tonight in a little while. But Josie, I don't know if you want to talk about what Trail 2.0 was and how that changed from the idea of people being able to learn to tell their stories to change makers to then thinking about how that could impact people who really make decisions and about changing laws or impacting policy.
Absolutely. So Trail was really an effort between, as I mentioned, the Women and Girls Foundation and some federal funded groups to really start looking at what it would look like to further empower the disability community to be able to share their stories, their perspectives with people in leadership positions, such as legislators, such as mayors or other decision makers. And so the major focus of the first two really revolved around paid family and medical leave, which would greatly impact people with disabilities and their caregivers and hopefully improve the employment outcomes for both groups. And then from that, we progressed to working more with candidates, because we know that if we can develop those relationships with candidates before they take office, then we'll be able to keep those relationships and that work going throughout the rest of their time there.
Yeah, because I think that it's really, really important to know how to tell your story and realize that it has impact. But learning how to interact with a change maker, what meetings typically look like, when they happen, where they can happen, what does follow up look like when you're having those conversations? What can you do when you're trying to interact and make a change in your community? And I think so many times, as Josie said at the beginning of this, that the disability community, as a person with a disability, I realize that we are the largest voting bloc like in the US, right? And I just don't know that our community always gets opportunities to really get themselves uh, into like into those conversations or have a seat at the table, be in the room where it happens, as Hamilton would say, right? And so really the first two trail was about, hey, your story matters and it has impact and it can help make change. But then how do you take that to places where it can have a real impact? Because I think sometimes people share stories and they might share their perspective with people that care about what they're saying, but they might not have the influence needed to really make an impactful, positive change for the disability community, which is why this forum tonight is so exciting, because getting the chance to ask our questions that were developed by our community really, really matters. And it's part of the reason why I love being here and being a part of this and having been a part of developing the training that happened. And so,
Yeah. And
I'm
so I think to
excited.
begin, I'm going to ask one of General Josh Shapiro's staffers to talk a little bit while we're waiting for the general about why did Mr. Shapiro run and want to run for this position, and what are some of his fundamental beliefs that are really steering your work in your office?
Thank you so much.
Akbar?
Yeah, my name's Akbar Hussain. I am the policy director on the Shapiro for Pennsylvania campaign. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and speak with you all. I wanted to give you a little background about myself. I am a child of immigrants. My parents immigrated here from Bangladesh. I was actually born in Bangladesh. I arrived to the US when I was 10. And then, my family lived what I consider is the American dream. And now I have an opportunity to work on a campaign for General Shapiro to ensure a better Pennsylvania for us all. So as we hit the trail, as we try to consider what policies are responsive to the needs of the people, I'm very fortunate and thankful to have this opportunity to learn from you all as we, develop and continue to expand on our policy for the disability community. I appreciate Dr. Josie's statement that the disability community is the largest voting bloc in the world, in the U.S. And which I was unaware of. So this is very helpful for me to learn from and understand. The general should be joining us shortly, but before he does, I wanted to give you a little more background about the general. He was a state legislator, so he was a state representative from Montgomery County. He was there for quite a few years. And then after that, he became the Montgomery County Commissioner, and where he rose to be the chair. He was the first Democrat since the Civil War to lead Montgomery County. And then after 2 terms as county commissioner in Montgomery County, which is the 3rd largest county in Pennsylvania, he actually went off to become the Attorney General of Pennsylvania. And while as Attorney General, he has led the fight to protect the people of Pennsylvania from attacks on the LGBT community, from attacks on our voting rights, to attacks on our seniors, and our our students from big corporations, and our labor community as well. So the Attorney General has had a lot of big fights, and he is a man of faith. His faith teaches him that No one is required to complete the task, but neither are we required to refrain from it. Pretty much the understanding that you cannot just sit on the sidelines, you have to get in the game and actually do something. He wants to run for governor because he wants to get the work done and ensure that people aren't getting screwed. And oftentimes in his job as Attorney General, he has seen the power of large corporations and large entities and just screwing over people who are just trying to make a living. And as Attorney General, he has stood up for those folks. He has led one of the largest investigations and cases against a company who was taken. It's called a Davis-Bacon Act case, where the company was stealing money from workers. And he prosecuted that company. He also led an investigation into the Catholic Church from the abuses of the Catholic Church priests here in Pennsylvania. And then he has also led on environmental efforts as well. He released a grand jury report on the issues around fracking here in Pennsylvania. And there are 8 recommendations in that report about where drilling can happen and where, recommended issues around what we can do to protect against chemicals that are being put into our water and sorts. So he wants to lead an effort. So while he has led an effort in terms of like cracking down on big corporations and big entities going after people, now he wants to lead policies in ensuring that people are protected and coming up with informed policies that can help respond to the real issues that people are going through. He is looking forward to answering your questions, whether it's issues around housing, whether it's issues around employment or transportation, education. He wants to be able to address those.
Thank you so much, Akbar. Just recently, you and I had a conversation where you came to me and asked about disability issues, which was unique in my perspective for previous governor races and even individual candidates. Why did Shapiro ask you to pursue finding out information, and what other groups are you trying to find information about issues and potential things that could be addressed if he were elected?
Yeah, of course. I think that's a really good question. And one of the important philosophies we have here on the campaign, and an important philosophy of the general, is that the people closest to the pain should be the people in power. In other words, like we should be thinking about our policy should be responsive to the needs of communities that are actually dealing with the real issues. Policymakers too often sit in Washington or Harrisburg and they talk about policies and they talk about implementing issues, but oftentimes we hear is that whatever they're talking about is not necessarily what the community really wants. So in order to really address the real issues happening on the ground, one of the big philosophies on this campaign, at least from a policy perspective, is to reach out to every community, whether it's the agriculture community, the farmers, the rural Pennsylvania, whether it's parents who are frustrated about their children, whether it's businesses, small businesses who are feeling the effects of the pandemic, school teachers who are trying to address how to deal with mental health issues, or the disability community, we want to ensure that whatever policies we're putting out are actually issues that you all are, that folks across Pennsylvania are having to address. So that is where we start. We start with trying to make sure that the people who have things to say have a seat at the table, not your big corporations. But we also want to make sure that what we're putting out there makes sense, right? Because people who are dealing with these issues on a daily basis are the ones who can really inform us. And we consider communities of experts, and we go out to the experts because the people are the experts.
Absolutely. And, as we're waiting for the general to join us, you mentioned about the experts being the people with lived experience, and I 100% agree with that. As you're getting information from the public, how would you recommend that people with disability caregivers would share their perspectives that maybe would help influence or at least give some insight to specifically General Shapiro, but other candidates as they're thinking through what they'll be working on during and after the election?
Yeah, no, I think that's an important question, and I think what's telling in the political process is we can never forget the power of numbers and the power of advocacy. Oftentimes, we think that just because there's one person talking about an issue, that the issue is going to be brought in front of the person making the decision, which is not often true. What I see here in politics is that somebody actually has to say something and bring it to the person's attention. And it's really important to identify, power structures and groups of people who are advocating and, send in information through trusted advisors, if you may, right? I think there are a lot of legislators who respond well to issues that you are having, and I tend to think a lot of economic issues and a lot of issues like deeply impacting folks are not really that political when it comes to ensuring better access to education for your children, when it comes to ensuring better access to healthcare, when it comes to ensuring access to resources. These are not bipartisan issues, but somehow politics has really gotten into our community in a way that it's really divisive. I see that the general is joining us, and I want to make sure he has the opportunity to answer your questions, and you guys get to hear from him. So I'll give it back to you, Josie.
Akbar, thank you so much. I think you gave a beautiful overview of why, hello, General, why he's running, what this campaign really looks like, and we're really excited to hear directly from General Shapiro. Thank you so much, Akbar. And I'm going to turn it over to Everett first, and who will then go to General Shapiro. So Everett.
Hi, General Shapiro. Thank you for being here tonight. And hi, everyone.
Hi, Everett.
Thank you so much. And just so you know, General Shapiro and everybody, we have a series of 8 questions to ask the General that will be asked by people with disabilities who have been a part of the TRAIL program. And what we'll say is that the person, if you're not going to be on camera, if you are a panelist asking a question, please turn your camera off unless you are asking a question. After you're done asking your question, please turn your camera off, and then everything can be focused on General Shapiro and his answer that he's going to give. So thank you all again for being here. And the first question is going to come from Laura Power to the General.
Good evening, General Shapiro. My name is Laura Power. I am a disability self-advocate from Allegheny County. I am also a master's student. I will graduate this coming August and soon begin seeking employment. That being said, I have a question about employment. My question is, even with programs like medical assistance for workers with disabilities and the newly implemented job success category, the majority of workers with disabilities don't pursue jobs, higher wages, or promotions because they are afraid of losing their benefits. What would you do to make sure that people with disabilities aren't deterred from seeking employment opportunities because of fear of losing their benefits?
Sure. Well, Laura, thank you for your question, and I want to answer it. But the first thing I want to do is just apologize for being late. And I want you to know that I have great respect for this group. I wouldn't ordinarily keep you waiting, but as you may know, we had the tragic loss of life of 2 state troopers who were killed in the line of duty yesterday. And so I was tending to that, which made me late. And so I want to apologize and let you know where I was and why I got here a bit late. But I'm glad you had the opportunity to hear from Akbar, who's our policy director and a really wonderful, wonderful person. I want to also just make mention, I understand that Representative Benham is on this Zoom as well. And she's just been an awesome leader in the House, and just really proud to work with her and excited to work with her as, God willing, Pennsylvania's next governor. Laura, your question is a really good one about employment. I think we need to reward work in Pennsylvania, not punish it. And the fear of loss of benefits should not impede any Pennsylvanian from going to work. I think we need to take a number of concrete steps. I would note that I think we have to increase the income limits for medical assistance for workers with disabilities. So more and more people with disabilities can pursue work. Right now, it's about $42,000. We should look to increase that well above $60,000. I also think we need to increase the asset limits for that program. Right now, it's at about $10,000, if memory serves me correct. That needs to be increased as well. We want to encourage and incentivize work, not have systems in place that try to discourage it. And so, Laura, I'll look forward to working with you and others to address that. But those are my views. We shouldn't punish work. We should increase these thresholds in order to encourage it.
Thank you for that answer, General Shapiro, and thank you, Laura, for your question.
Thanks.
The
Everett.
next question comes from Rachel Chandler. Rachel?
Hi,
Hi, Rachel.
just give me a second. Hi, my name is Rachel Chandler from Bucks County, PA. I have a physical disability and do not drive. Transportation is difficult in rural communities, regardless of disability. What would you do to increase accessible rural transportation?
Yeah, that's a critically important issue, not just in Bucks County, but all across this Commonwealth, and Rachel in particular in those rural communities. And so I'm glad you raised it. Thank you for your question. I have throughout my career as a state representative, then as county commissioner, and Rachel, I was in your neighboring county of Montgomery County. I was always a big supporter of funding for transportation authorities to create more local access for people with disabilities and otherwise. I think we need to ensure, particularly with all of these dollars coming in from the federal government, that we prioritize rural communities and rural funding. We need to incentivize things like rideshare programs. And actually, I think one of the ways we can do that is by increasing the mileage reimbursement for those rideshare programs to incentivize that work. And then the other thing I'm really, really intrigued by and interested in that I'd love to work with you on is to create more microtransit systems. And I'd like to use some of the federal dollars and complement that with state dollars in order to have more locally run transportation that can particularly help those with disabilities in their local community, Rachel, be it Bucks County or some other county. And so that is an efficient and effective way to transport folks. And I'd like to see more of those microtransit systems in Pennsylvania.
Thank you, General Shapiro, for that answer. Transportation, as you know, is super important to our community.
Mhm.
So that is a really thoughtful answer that I feel will resonate with the people that are here tonight.
Thanks, Everett.
The next question I have is from Stephanie. Stephanie, you want to go ahead with your question? For General Shapiro.
Hi, yes, sorry about that.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. So thank you very much for speaking with us tonight. My name is Stephanie Harshberger. I grew up in Lancaster County, but I now live in Chester. I am a college student with a disability pursuing a bachelor's degree with a view of eventual employment and independence. I am eligible to live in a care facility, but I would really much prefer to continue to live in the community with my family. I have been on a waiting list for services for over 7 years and have no appropriate support. I'm discouraged to think that I may never be able to obtain suitable employment or live on my own. Currently, there are over 10,000 people on the waiting list for waiver services, which pay for home and community services. What would you do to increase the availability of home and community-based services?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Stephanie, were you done your question? We had a little bit of an echo. I didn't mean to
Oh.
speak over you.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, I finished.
Great. Look, I think we need to incentivize at-home care services over institutional or communal settings. I think one of the most important ways we do that is by addressing the shortage of care workers that exist today. We're seeing that for a lot of our frontline workers, but these care workers in particular, we are just simply not seeing enough people willing to go into this work and then staying in this work. And so I think we need to have state incentives to both recruit and retain care workers, whether it's bonuses or loan forgiveness, particularly in rural communities where it's even harder to attract those who would do this work. And then I think we also have to streamline the waiver applications to provide better comprehensive services. We've got all kinds of waivers, way too many based on your age or your diagnosis. We got to streamline that process and make it much simpler. So I think all of those things together are going to put us in a position where we can better allow you, Stephanie, to live in the setting that you want to live in, but that we invest in to ensure that it exists in your community.
I'm really loving this discussion tonight, and thank you so much for taking the time to keep answering our questions.
Sure, Everett.
We have a few more.
Okay.
The next question is from Monica.
Good evening, General, and thank you
Yes,
for taking
Monica.
the time to be here.
Sure.
My name is Monica Albert Still. My image description is that I'm a heavy, middle-aged white woman with red hair, and I'm in an aqua top, and I have a blue background behind me. I'm a disabled person who is an RN, and as an administrator and a former administrator for a home health care agency. So when you were talking about home-based
Yeah.
and community services, that's my venue.
Yeah, right.
But I am retired because my body decided that it was time to retire.
Okay.
As both a provider and a recipient of care, I've experienced ableism in our healthcare system. Simply put, I perceive my quality of life as much higher than the medical community. I went to an emergency room with a minor problem, and because I have spina bifida, during the pandemic, they asked me if I wanted to be a do not resuscitate, which I'm 56 years old. I think that's a ridiculous question to ask, especially when that was nowhere near what my problem was. The distribution of scarce resources during the pandemic really demonstrates the problem that we have with perception of disability in the medical community. Medical and service providers need to have an understanding of disability beyond the medical diagnosis. The social model of disability needs to be considered in tandem with the medical model. What could you do to increase this understanding and sensitivity for clinicians?
Yeah, Monica, thanks for that question. And I see that and I recognize you're focused on the healthcare realm. I see it in a number of areas, Monica. Monica went away, so I hope you're still able to hear my answer to your question. I saw you a second ago, and now, there you are. Okay, great. Let me just tell you, I see it in a number of realms, certainly in the healthcare field. I see it in law enforcement as well. I see it in other first responders. And what I think we really need to do is focus on encouraging and ensuring that the material that's developed for these frontline professionals, again, your question had to do with medical profession, that those materials are developed with people with disabilities so that there can be a level of sensitivity and understanding that oftentimes well-intentioned people simply don't bring to the conversation. And so I want to encourage and ensure that development is done in a broader way than what we see now. In addition to that, I want to ensure that the Americans with Disabilities Act compliance exists in our healthcare settings. And I think there needs to be real enforcement of that, particularly on facilities that are getting state funding. And that's an area where I think we could put some more emphasis on in terms of state personnel. And then I also am a big believer in getting government to kind of work together and talk with people, particularly people who are not often at the table. And so I think we want to create an intra-agency state commission that focuses on not just how we do things within our state government, but partnering with other community and healthcare organizations to ensure that providers are focused on disability issues and sensitized to those issues. Monica, I think most folks that I come across, and there's some exceptions, of course, to this, but most folks I come across, they want to do it the right way, but they're oftentimes not trained or not sensitized to the various issues. And so I think this will be a way that we can do that. I also will invite you to, and you know, writ large here, to be a part of my administration and to be a part of educating us, educating Akbar, myself, and others in positions of authority within the Shapiro administration, so that we get it right and that we're sensitized on a whole, host of areas in order to, put our best foot forward. And so I think there's a lot of work that can be done. Oftentimes people have good intentions, but don't have the training necessary. And I'd like to change that as governor. Thanks, Monica.
Well, again, thank you for that answer. And you don't know this, General Shapiro, but I'm a person with a disability who actually provided training for first responders and medical doctors in the past. And I wish it could be done more on a broad scale. So the fact that you brought that up is pretty awesome. And I appreciate that. And just so you know, sorry for the Disappearing Act also. We're trying to have people disappear so that people can see the ASL interpreter. They need to see that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I was like, oh, we lost Monica.
No, yeah,
but
we're not disappearing on purpose. It's more, well, we're disappearing on purpose, but it's more about an access thing. We want to make sure everybody has access.
I just want to pick up on something you said, Everett, if you don't mind. When I was county commissioner in Montgomery County, I had a commission focused on firefighting. And we did a specialized training. It's a little bit off topic, but I think it's important to Monica's question and your follow-up comment. We did a specialized training for firefighters just to focus on helping children with autism in an emergency setting like that, where there's a fire, because of course, children with autism may react differently than a child without autism to the outreach hand of a firefighter or to the sights and the sounds of an emergency situation like that. And the number of firefighters who to this day thank me for that training and say how valuable it was for them and how important it was for them when they approached their next emergency setting was really, really extraordinary. And so I want to bring that type of an approach to state government in a whole host of areas in the healthcare realm, like Monica had raised in the first responder area, Everett, where you've done work, and in many others. I've seen the power of that. We need to do it.
No, thank you so much. And
Sure.
Our next question comes from Sandra.
Hi,
Hey, Sandra.
General Shapiro. Thank you so much for spending time with us tonight. As an adult with autism, it was really exciting for me to hear your answer to the last question.
Yeah.
My name is Sandra, and I live in Chester County. I was born in Chester County. My dad spirited me away to Los Angeles for my high school and college years, and I got my undergraduate education at UCLA, and I worked in Los Angeles for about 10 years until I became physically disabled. At that point, I decided to return to Pennsylvania with my children because we have a better K-12 system here. And both my kids have autism, just like my husband and I do. And I'm also an unpaid caretaker for 2 other young adults who have autism that live with us. Now all of them are nearly grown, and we desperately need a home big enough for all of us.
Right.
But due to disability, money is a very scarce resource in our household. And we would all like to stay together as a family, but the waiting list for affordable Section 8 housing in this county is 10 years long. And you
Yeah.
can't even get on the waiting list right now. It's
Yeah.
closed.
Yeah.
You can't even get on. So many other Pennsylvania counties have a similar challenge. You know, thanks to the pandemic, it's kind of a statewide housing crisis. There are few options for people with disabilities who want to live in the community, and I'd like to know what you could do to
Yeah.
increase the availability and affordability of housing for people with disabilities in Pennsylvania.
Well, Sandra, thanks for your question. And I'm super aware of this issue and have worked a lot on it as county commissioner and have a plan to address it as governor. In fact, as county commissioner, we help build some affordable housing for people with disabilities in the kind of central part of Montgomery County. We need to do more of that statewide. It's why, it's why I talk a lot about the need to triple the funding available in the Housing Trust Fund so that there are more tax credits available to build affordable housing, and then to whatever it's called, sort of earmark that those units, if you will, for folks with disabilities. This has been a particular passion of mine in building and rebuilding affordable housing in communities. I also think that we can go beyond that and have grants for families, particularly first-time homeowners with disabilities, to be able to make down payments. I think we need to improve access to capital for modifications of homes for people to be able to stay in their homes with some changes or retrofitting. And I also want to be able to create a home repairs program that landlords and homeowners can take advantage of as well. So we're going to come at this from a lot of different angles. I recognize the importance of it, Sandra, and thanks for your question.
Sorry for the delay. I couldn't get unmuted fast enough. I was cheering over here because I am literally a married man with a 2-year-old daughter, live with a wheelchair, and am trying to get home mods under my house now. So
Right.
Hearing about your ideas about home mod programs that can be effective is
It's
pretty
really
awesome.
important. It's really important. And by the way, it's cheaper for the Commonwealth to assist you with a modification than trying to find you a whole new home. And we just need to be smarter in how we invest our state dollars in helping you, Everett, and others.
Yeah, thank you, General. The next question for you, General Shapiro, is from Melanie.
All right, Melanie.
Hi, General Shapiro. My name is Melanie, and I reside in Butler County. I was born with a rare complex birth defect, and I mentor medically complex and disabled students. My question is, how will you work to ensure students with disabilities continue to receive high-quality primary and secondary education and support services as the pandemic continues?
Look, I think we right now, today in Pennsylvania, have an education funding system that is unconstitutional. And it's unconstitutional because here in Pennsylvania, every single student or every child is guaranteed the right to what's known as a thorough and efficient education system. It says it right in our state constitution. And for too many young people, oftentimes Black and brown students or disabled students who are in situations where they're not getting adequate funding, they're not only falling behind, but we're not meeting our constitutional mandate to those young people. And so I have a plan to not just invest in the education side of schooling, but the infrastructure side, in making sure that our buildings are fit for each and every child and that they are safe and secure. I also think we need to focus not just on what students learn, but the well-being of students. And that's why I've proposed to put a mental health counselor in every single school building in Pennsylvania. The pandemic has really exacerbated or at least elucidated the issues related to student mental health, and we've got to address it. I launched an initiative as Attorney General called Safe to Say. It's an app on your phone that allows students to anonymously report tips about violence in their schools. And instead of reporting tips about violence, they've actually 73% of the tips have been about mental health related issues. So we've got the data to know that we have to invest in mental health. I think it's also important that we invest more in teacher pay, and support services need more funding to ensure the safety and general well-being of all students in schools. So appreciate your question, and I'll be a governor that focuses a lot on education.
Thanks for your answer as always. And we have 3 more questions, General, just so you know. That's
I
kind of where we are.
got a couple more minutes, Everett, so we'll try and go quick.
Okay. The next question comes from Taylor.
Hello, General.
Hi, Taylor.
My name is Taylor Floria. Thank you for speaking to us tonight on disability issues. I live in Chester County, and I am a student with autism at Westchester University pursuing a bachelor's degree. I'm lucky to have an autism support program at my school to help me finish my degree. This program also helps with job experience and placement. Other people with disabilities often don't have this kind of resource, but the rate of students with disabilities who graduate with at least a 4-year program is low, 34% compared to 51 students without disabilities who graduate. And only 14% of people with disabilities who have only a high school diploma are employed, while it's 26% of those with at least a bachelor's degree are employed. It's still low, but better than 14%. What I want to ask is, what kinds of actions would you consider to support people with disabilities for attending and completing college?
Look, I think too oftentimes colleges, especially our state colleges and universities, they might have a program, but they don't share the information well with the students or with the community or with other colleges. And so I think we need to have grants for colleges to highlight programs for disabled individuals, whether it's student loans and loan forgiveness programs. We've got to incentivize the expansion of disability services on campus with work study grants as just one example. And then I also think we need to ensure that the Office of Vocational Rehab is doing better outreach. We have folks who are originally supported by OVR, and then they're no longer able to work because of a disability progression, and there's not really a lot of follow-up there. And so I think we have to be committed on that whole continuum, Taylor, for you and others who find themselves in the system of higher education, to help them while they're in school, and then to help them transition into jobs when they leave school.
All right, thank you.
So I think, General, we have time for one more question. Is that right? One more?
Great, thank you.
That question comes from James.
Great. Hi, James.
Hello, General Shapiro, and thank you.
Sure.
My name is James Henderson. I was born with spina bifida. I am a graduate from the Holy Family University with a bachelor's degree in psychology. I am a disability advocate with TRAIL, and I'm also a member of the Middletown Township Human Relations Commission in Bucks County. I want to ask you a question today about paid family and medical leave, which is near and dear to my heart. In 2019, while I was working, my grandmother had 2 strokes in 1 year. Due to her strokes, she needed someone to work with her to help with physical therapy. Since I have a physical disability and have been in PT on and off for several years, I was someone who could help her, but I couldn't visit her on the days that I worked. With PFML, I could have worked with her anytime she needed me. My aunt had to quit her job to take care of her mother full time. With PFML, she could have been able to keep her job. We are in an international care crisis. The level of care in America is provided by individuals who are often unpaid loved ones or low-paid staff. In Pennsylvania, there is no PFML, and FMLA does not cover most caregivers. My question is, what are your thoughts on PFML?
Yeah, look, I think you shouldn't have to choose between work and family. I think we should be empowering people to create that balance. that allows them to not jeopardize their job because of a family or, medical obligation. And that's something that I think is critically important. And that's why when I'm governor, I'll look forward to signing legislation enshrining PMFL for businesses across Pennsylvania. And James, if you're willing, I'd love to have you at that signing ceremony, and you can remind me of this question that you asked me during this conversation. I think government needs to empower people, not set up roadblocks for people. And this is an example where the PFML approach really is more of a roadblock as opposed to a tool of empowerment. And I want to change that attitude when I'm governor.
Thank you so much, General Shapiro. I think that was our last question. Do you have anything else you want to wrap up with? Or Josie, do you want to say anything as we wrap up with the general?
Well, let me just say, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I just really wanted to say thank you for your time. And I want to, again, apologize for being late. And if my mood is a bit quiet, it's just, you have to understand, these families of these troopers are really struggling and suffering right now. And so I want to just thank you for your understanding of my tardiness. I want to encourage you throughout this campaign to stay in touch with me and with Akbar Hussain, our policy director. I know Akbar is still with us, and he'll put his contact information in the chat. Your questions were terrific, and I want you all with me in this campaign. I believe we can build a Pennsylvania that is more inclusive and understanding, a Pennsylvania that really sets a gold standard for what a state should do to support people with disabilities. I again want to thank the representative for her work. She's just been awesome in Harrisburg and really provides a perspective that has been lacking there for so long. And so I'm excited to work with Representative Benham when I get the opportunity, God willing, to serve as governor. And I'm excited to work with all of you, whether it is you coming to my office to talk to me about these issues, me having the honor of being able to appoint you to boards and commissions and other posts in our state government that allow the perspective of people with disabilities to be heard and felt. I just want you to know you're important to me. And this is personal to me. And I want to do everything in my power to support you as your next governor. So Everett, thank you for the questions. Thank you all very much for your attention tonight. Thank you for your understanding of the day's events. And I look forward to staying in close touch with you.
Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much.
you, General Shapiro, and thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for making time on this. I know it was a tough to try to transition from what you were experiencing to coming to this now. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. We look forward to seeing you all soon.
Yes. Good night, everyone.